So we only have 15 minutes. So let's just very briefly, Benjamin, just tell people what Simeon is.
So Simeon is a game company. We started as a social game company with hardcore games on Facebook. So we have a game called Uber Strike, which is the largest first-person shooter in the world. So do people know who knows what a first-person shooter is? Raise your hand. Okay, all the guys. All right, well, so first-person shooter is a shooting game where you basically wield a gun to kill your opponents. In our case, a multiplayer game, real-time 3D game. It's one of very popular game genre on consoles. It's very popular on PC with games like Call of Duty, Halo, Counter-Strike, if you're a bit older, Quake, Doom. If you're a guy, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you're a girl, well, maybe you probably have guy friends, and you might play. So that's basically what we're doing. Recently, about 2 months ago, we took the same game and we ported it to tablets, and we launched on iPad about 2 months ago. So that's what we have. Just to give you a couple of numbers, we passed 10 million registered users across the different channels we serve. We have about 2 million monthly active users, and that's pretty much where we are at the moment.
So let's just cut to the chase. You're not Chinese.
Damn, noticed.
Your co-founders are not Chinese.
Yes, correct.
And so the question asking, because you're unusual that you're an entrepreneur in China with non-mainland Chinese, not even overseas Chinese co-founders. So why China, and how was your expectations of that?
So it started a little bit as an accident because the founders actually met in Beijing. One of the other founders from France, like me, another one from Australia. Everybody was living in Wudao, not too far from here, taking a break from work, learning Chinese, and thinking about the next venture. And initially it started because the founders met here and formed the idea of the company here. And it had advantages being based here, and it also had limitations in that sense that, as you notice, I'm not Chinese, my co-founder is not Chinese. So China, even though in the gaming space looked like an exciting market, it was already very complicated on the web. On top of that, Facebook was blocked here, so there was a lot of limitations that made it difficult for us to think of ourselves as a Chinese company. So the company was seen already from day one as a global company. And China might actually be like a second step after like US. There was also advantages in terms of cost initially. This is much less the case today, I guess, for a lot of people in tech, you notice that. But strangely, Beijing turns out to be a pretty good place to assemble an international team. So a lot of our team members are from around the world. We have a lot of guys from Europe in the development team. And it's actually possibly easier to get a team like that together in Beijing than in Silicon Valley. It's also still cheaper than Silicon Valley, which is like skyrocketing prices.
So Simeon's been around for a couple of years. It's gone through many iterations. It went from different platforms. But when you first started, what was Simeon, and what was your initial sort of expectations?
So it's interesting. Yeah, at the beginning, the company was actually not a game company. It started as more a technology company, building what we wanted to be the 3D Skype. So we wanted the service to be a client-based communication tool for collaboration, the rich collaboration. And we built a technology platform to do that, and we built a number of prototypes, including like 3D spaces, like a social network, 3D visualizers, and the CTO put together a very quick prototype over a weekend of 2 characters in a 3D space, but with guns. And he put that, initially it started as a widget. So if you have an Apple user, maybe you're still using some of the widgets. He put that together as a widget, and he put it on apple.com just because it could be there. Within a week, this widget got 1 million downloads. So it made us reconsider what the business should be. And turned out that as a widget, nobody can make money really. But putting together a first-person shooter, multiplayer 3D in such a small package was the first step toward making it available on social networks and other platforms later.
So I remember if you ever use a Macintosh OS, which is in Mountain Lion. I remember in the little bar among the top 10 games that are being downloaded, Uber Strike, which is a Simeon product, was there. So, coming from China, how are you able to get so many downloads in a global market?
I think the answer is that people don't care. uh, don't care if you have a good product. They don't really care whether you're from China or wherever else. To a large extent, I think nationality is a brand. So if you feel that your country brand is not supporting your business, well, you can just not talk about it. And there's a number of Chinese companies and other companies around the world that do that. Or as soon as they open a US branch, they relocate the headquarters. They have maybe just one sales guy over there, but they become a US company. So which is why you see that it looks like every single company is a US success, even if the founders are not American, the company didn't start in the US, and the key market might not even be the US. Well, in our case, it is, but we also have a lot of users in many other markets. So I don't think like being Chinese or not makes really a difference.
So, other than Simeon, I sort of want to expand. You're one of the organizers of Mobile Monday here in Beijing, but you also ran a consultancy, which for a couple of years it was the leading source of Asian online communities. I used to read it about SciWorld, and so your expectations from that. Has any of that sort of experience and knowledge helped you now in sort of expanding Simeon into a mobile sort of social world?
I guess so. Yeah, my background's a bit particular because so I was a bit of a community builder, like you are, so organizing events in Beijing with Mobile Monday, participating in a lot of conferences, and I also run a consultancy researching key Asian markets for almost 10 years, actually, across Japan, Korea, and China, where I've been living for the last decade. And I guess the perspective that brought to the company is that we don't really think in terms of country or language. We think in terms of ecosystem. And I think that was really well summarized by the first speaker, Henry from Yodo once, talking about how when you look at China, well, you still have Android devices, iOS devices. But if you look at Android, the ecosystem is entirely different because you have a lot of stores, you have very different payment systems, you have very different purchasing power, you have different user behavior. So all this is part of ecosystem elements. So when we look at markets, we look at that, and that's how we prioritize our market approach.
So, sort of looking into your crystal ball, where do you think things will be happening for, I guess, the mobile game or at least the tablet gaming space for the next few years?
I think it's going to be amazing. So the reason I think it's going to be amazing is because there's already more tablets out there than consoles. So effectively, tablets are the new consoles. What's really exciting is that so far, and you've seen that transition a bit through also on social games on the web, is that the first wave of games were barely games from the point of view of game developers. They were really very, very simple. They were like quizzes or very, very simple viral things. And then they turned into like more graphical games, 2D isometric games, things that you've seen maybe like 20 years ago in the gaming space. And gradually, it went from attracting the casual gamers or the non-gamers, turning them into gamers, to attracting people who like more what we call today mid-core games, so like management games, sim games, a bit more complex. And I think now what's really exciting is that the gamers are already waiting for core games on all those platforms. So they're waiting for the shooter games, the racing games, the sports games. They're waiting for all this, and because it's hard to do, it's more expensive, it's more complex technology, they haven't had yet their fix. So we're one of the first few companies providing that with a free-to-play model. So if you look at that particular genre of shooter games, so we're still the largest on Facebook, and on tablets, you have a few shooter games, but most of them are ports from the package software, let's say, legacy. So it's premium games, you have to pay for them. Sometimes you have in-app purchases, but mostly you buy the package. And we're one of the very first doing multiplayer shooter games. So I think it's going to be really, really exciting. We expect more competition, but so far so good.
Yeah, Benjamin, are you planning to stay here in Beijing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we, as a company, we have a very strong base here. We actually opened an office at the end of last year in Europe, in Berlin, where we think it's possible also to attract some good tech talent at more affordable prices than Silicon Valley. We're probably going to open a Silicon Valley office later this year. And more personally, well, I enjoy the traveling between all the
global
destinations.
aspect of it, yeah.
That's the plan.